Welcome back, guys. This is a Suibhne video, a shorter Suibhne video, but something I had my eyes on for a while now, and we should definitely attack, especially since we do a lot of Rome videos. This is called Roman Mythology Animated. So in Roman society, of course, they're very much paganistic, just meaning not paganistic. Basically, just means non-Christian, I think, right? But nevertheless, and if that's wrong, correct me. But yeah, let's look at Roman mythology. It's probably going to be akin to Greek mythology, but it's going to have its separate pieces here or there. So let's go.
Okay, so besides history, mythology has always been a guilty pleasure of mine. And boy have I been waiting to do this topic for a while. As a function of popularity, Roman mythos isn't nearly as popular as its Greek counterpart.
Right, obviously, right? Because a lot of Rome, not just religion in this case, but culture comes from Greece. And I mean, that can be said for a lot of the Mediterranean, like the Etruscans and Carthaginians and so forth. But in terms of like the religion itself, it's the parallels, and it's like a mirror almost of Greek mythology.
Since the Romans were more preoccupied with empire building and Caesar killing than they were with their oral traditions. But they did name the planets after their deities, which is nice.
I think all but one is Roman, right? Is that right? We'll have to see. I'll have to check later. It must be an older version of Suibhne.
Okay, so the Romans borrowed heavily from the Greek pantheons and also appropriated many of their homegrown deities into Greek equivalents. The Italian peninsula had been in contact with the Greeks for centuries, and Greek colonies were spread throughout the Mediterranean, so
Yes, bunch of them.
this was somewhat inevitable. To get some of the bigger famous gods out of the way, the Roman pantheon corresponded mostly with the third Greek dynasty called the Olympians. Zeus, Hera, and Athena became Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva respectively, the
Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva.
three patron gods of Rome. Ares, Aphrodite, and Poseidon became Mars, Venus, and Neptune.
Mars, Venus, and Neptune, obviously planets, and then Jupiter's obviously a planet.
Hermes, with his cool winged shoes, became Mercury, the god of communication, transport, and commerce. The famous Titan equivalents are the first gods Uranus of the sky and Gaia of the earth, who, through their marriage, bore Saturn, one of the oldest and most famous gods of Roman mythology. Saturn was hugely important to the Romans, as he reigned the supreme deity and father of Jupiter, corresponding to his Greek equivalent Kronos. The age of Latin dominance over Italy is said to be attributed to him, and his name lives on in the planet Saturn and the 6th day of the week, Saturday. The winter solstice festival.
Oh yeah, I remember that Saturday, and then there was Saturnitis. That was like, or is it Saturnitis? Nevertheless, there was a festival for Saturn.
His name lives on in the planet Saturn and the 6th day of the week, Saturday. The winter solstice festival became dedicated to him in the month of December as Saturnalius, or Saturn Festival, and Christmas was later moved to December 25th to coincide with it, illustrating just how important it was to the Romans. Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, would become Pluto. Hephaestus, the Greek god of fire, became Vulcan, where the modern word volcano comes from. The odd one out was Apollo, who seems to have blended over time with some other deities. Classic Roman mythology places him with Greek Apollo, the son of Jupiter, but Apollo was also worshipped for many other things, and it's hard to pin down. He is portrayed as the patron god of Troy, which would later make him very important to the Romans. The Trojans worshipped him as
Because Romulus and Remus and their father is I think, isn't that mythologically or legendarily connected to the city of Troy?
portrayed as the patron god of Troy, which would later make him very important to the Romans. The Trojans worshipped him as the sun god, which seems to correspond with the Italian Etruscan god Sol, but also at various times been associated with Helios, who is not an Olympian but a Titan like Saturn, who is famous for drawing the sun across the sky in his chariot. All these inconsistencies were hand-waved somewhat, as the customs, festivals, and worship mattered a lot more to the Italians than the myths or the stories. But don't take my word for it, I wasn't there. Of the
You weren't?
stories, there are some good ones. Hercules was adopted from the Greek hero Heracles, the son of Zeus and a mortal woman. Heracles was an immensely influential character in Roman times, and his stories feature heavily. Besides the well-known 12 tasks, Heracles also has stories featuring him in the Roman Empire, such as killing Vulcan's son Casus, the fire-breathing giant, or when he visited Germany with some of the locals identifying him as Thor. Hercules is said to have visited a town on the southern shores of Gaul and chased away the gods that were terrifying the locals. In honor of him, they built the temple of Hercules Maniakos, which I'm sure you've pieced.
Whoa!
In honor of him, they
Hercules Mananakos Monaco.
built the temple of Hercules Maniakos, which I'm sure you've pieced together eventually became Monaco. Many of these stories were compiled into literature, the most famous of which was the Aeneid, an epic.
Yeah, the Aeneid. Isn't that like a sister book of the Iliad?
Saga containing the founding myths of Rome. Virgil, the poet and writer, was commissioned by Caesar Augustus to write an epic poem about himself and his glorious life, to which Virgil said sure, and then immediately began work compiling a historical epic on the history of Rome, to stick it to Augustus, who he didn't like very much.
Dang.
Virgil compiled several stories and sources relating to Rome's history into one epic saga spanning 3 continents and many years, initially meaning to serve as a sequel to Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, but also heavily borrowing from both. The Aeneid.
Interesting. And by the way, have you guys read the Aeneid? The Aeneid? Have you guys read that?
It, much like the Odyssey, picks up soon after the Trojan War, with Aeneas, a Trojan warrior and son of Venus, tasked with taking the Trojan survivors and finding them a new home. Either that or he ran away, sources disagree. The Trojan refugees took a fleet of ships and began their epic quest to find their prophesied new home of Italy.
And this is what I was talking about. This is like the legend itself. And also another thing I was coming back to. I think Neptune, it sounds like, is the only Greek planet.
This being far too mortal a quest, the gods couldn't help themselves by getting involved. Aeneas' journey was interfered by competing gods who either did or did not want the Trojans to find a new home.
And don't they go to Carthage for a second and then go to Rome?
Juno, Jupiter's wife, or niece, depending who you ask, was particularly ruthless in her attempt to stop Aeneas from getting to Italy, since it was foretold that his descendants would one day destroy and conquer Carthage, her all-time favorite city. Neptune, the god of the sea, helped the Trojan fleet by halting a storm sent by Juno, but not before it had blown them all the way to Libya. With some more divine intervention, eventually Aeneas made it to Carthage, where he stayed for 6 years, married the queen of Carthage, Dido, and generally became content, before a strongly worded suggestion from Jupiter via Mercury, who told Aeneas to get off his butt and start sailing again. The Trojans would...
It's very interesting, the hindsight adding Carthage and then like creating like a bookend myth of like in terms of a what do you call it? My brain is not working. Basically a fortune or something that you're gonna see in the future. My brain's not working. Lack of the better word, a fortune, a forward thought, a predestination that Carthage will be destroyed by Rome, because at the time of Augustus, obviously Carthage is no more. There's been 3 Punic Wars and it's literally been sacked and it's rubble basically, right?
Quietly sneak off one night and Aeneas would abandon his wife, angering her so much that she cursed Aeneas and vowed that Carthage will always be an enemy to his descendants. This is what those in the writer's business call foreshadowing. After a brief stop in Sicily, Aeneas finally arrives on the shore of Italy, and after a visit to the underworld, he learns of his destiny to become the father of the Roman Empire. So, no pressure. Hopping on his boat again, the Trojans settled the Italian kingdom of Latium and immediately started a war. Seriously, the rest of the book is just war between competing suitors to the Latin princess's hand. Tiberinus, god of the Tiber River and son of the Titan Oceanus, helped Aeneas in the war. He once again assured Aeneas that Italy was to be his home and that he should found a settlement and become father to the world's greatest empire. Aeneas
No pressure.
then founded the city of Alba Longa in Latium and became its first king. His descendants would rule the city until the birth of the princess Rhea Silva. Rhea became pregnant with the sons of the Roman god Mars, eventually giving birth to twins she named Romulus and Remus. Their granduncle, the king of Alba, saw them as a threat to his rule and ordered them killed, whereupon they were thrown into the Tiber River to die. Tiberinus then
or more likely than not, sat upon the river bank,
rescued the twins, and a she-wolf found the boys and suckled them to keep them alive.
More likely than not, a prostitute.
The boys grew up in an area of 7 hills and became great warriors, and after learning who they were, they led a revolt against the king, their uncle, who had himself usurped the throne from Romulus and Remus's grandfather, Numitor. With Numitor back on the throne, the twins returned to the 7 hills they were raised on. A disagreement on where to settle down led to a fight between the two, and Romulus killed his brother. Romulus then created a settlement and named it after himself, Rome, and reigned as its first king. And that is how the Trojan refugees would live on to become the legendary founders of the Roman Empire.
Is that it?
This video has...
Wow. I mean, I've heard this story a few times, but I think the interesting part is a lot of the beginning parts as well, especially like that interesting like anecdote about Monaco. That's crazy. That's actually crazy to learn that. But yeah, actually, I think we learned this the journey. I actually didn't know about the Aeneid. That's one thing I didn't know as well. Obviously, the Iliad and Odyssey. And another thing is the same. Uh, I think next year we're gonna have an Odyssey movie, so that's gonna be interesting to see how that goes. I think in 2026, the Odyssey movie. I think it was Christopher Nolan. It's gonna create that, so it should be good. But nevertheless, I need to pick myself back up on the Iliad and the Odyssey, and then attack the Aeneid, just to kind of like have a holistic understanding of the mythos of antiquity. But interestingly enough, we already knew about the thing. That's why I was like, yeah, they stopped at Carthage. Because the other channel, which if you haven't checked out and you haven't subscribed to, you best do it. Magister Vitae, I think that's where we learned that originally. But this is a really interesting, fun video. Guys, put me some video suggestions down below. This was just a short one, just kind of re-emphasizing Roman mythology, and yeah, what an impact it's had on us till this day. Till next time, peace out. Bye-bye.